Let's face it, parents aren't always the best communicators, whether it's with each other or with their children. And kids are not always the best listeners either. Tonight, we'll give your family some tips to keeping those lines of communication from becoming tangled or even cut. So please stay with us. Thank you. Thank you very much and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and welcome to EWTN Live, our chance to bring you guests from all over the world. Before we get to our guest, I want to mention that today is the feast of St. Matthew the Evangelist. He wrote the first gospel that we have in the order of gospels. People dispute whether he was the first one to write. The early church said that he was the first writer, but most scholars say that St. Mark was first, but that's a dispute that doesn't matter so much as that we read the Gospel of Matthew. That's what really counts, is that we understand the message that he has about Jesus and get to know our Savior Jesus by hearing him spoken of by a gospel from one of his own disciples. So I urge you all to take some time over the next couple days to read the whole Gospel of Matthew and become more familiar with it again. It doesn't matter how many times you read it. You can keep coming back over and over again and find new depths, and that's what I urge you to do. Now, for our guest, she works to enable parents and their children to communicate openly and effectively about topics like love, chastity, peer pressure, friendship, self-worth, and more. She's the executive director of Family Honor Incorporated. So please welcome Mrs. Brenda Cerkez. Brenda.
It's so nice to be here, Father.
Good to have you. Good to have you. Where do y'all live?
We're in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay. And is this where your organization has its headquarters?
It is. We got started in a little town in South Carolina called Sumter, South Carolina, but really for probably about the past 18 years or so, we've been in Columbia, and that's where our headquarters is. But we also now, in the last few years, have some affiliates outside of South Carolina in about 6 other states. So little by little, we're growing, and that's a good thing.
Sure. Now, so that we know what we're talking about, what exactly is this organization that you are in charge of?
Well, it's called Family Honor, and we do kind of what we sound like we do. We were created in 1988 to provide and promote a family-centered Catholic approach to chastity education. We started because there was a group of concerned parents that wanted more for their kids than what the so-called popular culture was offering. Very often a negative view of sex, certainly a misdirected view of sex. And so these parents got together and said, you know, we've got to do something. And so that's how Family started out. It was created by parents for parents, and to this day, really, it's grassroots driven. We have a lot of parents that are involved with our organization. Okay,
and what is the sole topic that you cover are sexual issues regarding teenagers? Is that the only thing you talk about?
It's not at all, because as one of our founders, Ann Nurbin, says, life is not sex and sex is not life. And so what we talk about is chastity education and God's gift of sexuality as a part of our programs. But really, we talk about a lot of other topics too. One of the core topics being appropriate parent-child communication, healthy communication in the family. How does that start? What does it look like? We talk about love and responsibility in the family. We talk about male-female complementarity. We talk about learning how to be a true friend. And really, at the end of the day, a lot of what we're trying to do is give parents and their teens and their preteens a common language so that they have a place to meet, so to speak, and a language to use to talk about some of these things. One of the ways that we would say it is we try and bring parents and their children together to really help the parent talk to the child and help the child answer some of the big questions in life. Who am I, and what is my life for? Why was I created?
Now, let's get into this a little bit more concretely if we can, because these are all great goals. But how does a parent do some of this? For instance, you talk about the importance of becoming a friend. You know, my father used to say, "I'm your father, I'm not your friend. Make your own friends. God gave you to me as your father."
Right.
Which is a truth. But you don't mean that we're just buddies.
No.
There's something else that you're talking about. What is it that you want parents to do with the children?
Right, and when we're talking about helping children know the qualities of a friend, this is more with their peers, not really with their parents, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah. What we're trying to do when we bring parents and their child, their preteen or teen together, and all of our programs are age appropriate, so it's not like, you know, we're bringing parents together with kids that are, you know, 10 years old up to 18 years old. They're very targeted and very age appropriate. And the topics that are covered are age appropriate. And so what we're there to do, what our presenters are there to do at our programs, which are typically delivered at basically Catholic parishes, are their host sites for our programs. We bring our teams in. And what we try and do is facilitate and provide an opportunity for communication on all these topics. So we've got a curricula, we've got kind of a set program, and the parents and the teens or preteens are in the audience, and we lead them through these topics. And one of the things that our programs really do provide, it's an opportunity away from all the craziness, the busyness, the football practice, the piano lessons, all the other things that, you know, families today just seem like they're so busy. They're on the run all the time. And some of these big, important topics, there doesn't seem a lot of times to be time to really dig into them. And very often too, we find over and over and over again that parents who truly want to talk about these things with their young people, they don't know where to start.
What is it that makes it so difficult to talk to your teenagers about the important issues of life? What's the stumbling block?
I think one of the big stumbling blocks really is the whole idea of God's gift of sexuality and the topic of chastity. Where to start there, what language to use, how do you introduce that? And in some cases too, what we hear back from parents are, they're not sure where to start because their parents in many cases didn't have these conversations with them. So they're just kind of searching really for some help, some assistance, somebody to give them a jump start, a way to get started. And it's funny because over the years we have had calls literally from all over the country from parents who say to us, you know, I'd almost given up thinking I would find a place like yours, your organization, to help me know how to have these conversations, just to give me that little boost. And so that's what our programs do. You come and we do some icebreakers just to get everybody loosened up, and then we start talking a little bit about communication. We talk about whole person sexuality. And one of the things that we try and incorporate too is the idea when we do talk about God's gift of sexuality within the context of our programs, always being very careful that we respect the dignity of each participant that is there. We separate by sex when we come to that part of our program so that dads are with boys and moms are with girls for that particular part of the program. The rest of the program, parents and our kids are just all mixed up in the group. But we always want to respect the dignity of the human person. And so, you know, this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks. Where do I get started on the talk about sex? And trying to understand that it's more than just an anatomy and physiology lesson. And that also is where a lot of even adults are stuck because that was their experience growing up. They might have had somebody's dad or mom come in who was a doctor or nurse or health professional and come in and just kind of give like a 45-minute talk on changing bodies. And so it was a very limited view of this gift of sexuality that a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond grew up with. And what we're trying to get across is a much more holistic approach, that the unique person that God created is more than just the physical person. We have an emotional side to us, a spiritual side, intellectual, creative. And this is what we're called to develop, the full person, not just being obsessed with body parts and functions or how somebody looks and their physical appearance.
Right. And in terms of some of the others, because, that realm is one difficult area of discussion, because there are important discussions to take place when a child is 11, 12 years old. But then as they get older, there are new issues that you have to confront as well, because they may know about human sexuality from a lot of aspects, but there are new elements as they start to relate to the opposite sex, and they have new questions. Do you help parents deal with issues of dating and morals and things like that?
We do. The two programs that we really focus on and are requested the most are the programs for actually middle school age kids with their parents. So the ones we do the most are parents with 6th graders and parents with their 8th or 9th grader. But we do have a high school age program that's currently in redevelopment, because even as a young person is starting to grow their independence, very appropriately, that's natural and that's good.
Right.
We want to still have that connection for them with their parent. And the parent still wants that too. Your mom and dad are always going to be your mom and dad. They know you. So how do you have these hard conversations, but do it in a way that you respect each other, and that one does recognize that the other one is needing to, in an appropriate way, start establishing their independence a little bit. So we do have that. Like I said, it's in the stage of redevelopment right now, but that program for parents with their high school age young person. But interestingly enough too, the other dynamic is also the need for this with parents of younger children. And this surprises some people, because they think, well, what would you be saying to a 3-year-old? But this is something that can be very important, and that is starting from a very early age, not to give your 2-year-old or your 5-year-old tons and tons of information that they can't even begin to understand, but to start to model appropriate behavior, you and your spouse, how you treat each other, the dignity that you accord each other, how you talk about the differences between little boys and little girls, the modesty that you reflect in your home, all of this being done in a very appropriate way, even at a young age, so that these ideas are starting to just take a little root then.
Right. I had a young cousin that I dealt with some of these issues because his father, my cousin, was dead. And so the kinds of questions that come up are oftentimes observed in the animal world, like how do mother animals feed their young? They want to know. And so I always noticed that he would ask a question and I would answer it very straightforwardly. But I could see the lights go off because that was as much information as he could tolerate.
Exactly.
And so you don't say any more.
Exactly.
You let they have to digest that level of information at their little minds, and then as they get older, they want to pull the different pieces together and see what's going on, and understand it better. But that's a relationship that you start young and work up with, and that's a very positive thing.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things too, and it's kind of counterintuitive, I think, to what a lot of parents think. A lot of parents, because we hear back from parents all the time, a lot of parents think once their kids get to be teenagers, they don't want to hear this from me. I'm the last person they want to talk to about this. And it's just the opposite. Over and over again, both anecdotally and also from surveys that are done on a regular basis, teenagers are saying, well, the person that I really want to talk to me about this is my parents, is my mom and dad.
Right.
And so there is that yearning, there is that desire for that relationship.
I think the real issue is not that the kids don't want to talk to their parents, but that the parents are nervous talking to their kids.
Exactly.
I think that's what, and sometimes, they're afraid. I don't know if you find this, but they're afraid. will they start asking about some of my own misbehavior?
Exactly. Yeah.
And how can I tell them that I didn't always live chastity well, and then tell them to go ahead and be better than I was?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a common
dynamic.
issue.
That is a dynamic there. And of course, we would say to parents, there is actually no law that says you have to reveal everything about your past to your son or daughter. That's, you don't have to do that, first of all. Second of all,
Matter of fact, it may be better if you don't.
Exactly. But at this point, the most common comment that we hear from parents who go through our programs, typically at the end of the program, and it's so poignant and it's so full of meaning, and it's happened over and over and over again through the years, is, I wish so much that family honor had been around when I was growing up, because I wouldn't have made some of the choices that I did. And when you have parents telling you that over and over and over, first of all, there's a world of hurt out there.
Yes.
There is a lot of woundedness out there, and we need to recognize that. But secondly, it makes it even all the more urgent and underscores the fact that, and in particular because of the aggressive culture that we're in right now, parents need to talk to their kids. They need to fill them up with good stuff.
Yes. This is one of the things that there are a lot of people who are, I think, I'm not sure, because I don't always have my hand on the pulse of what's going on in the culture, but from what I hear, there are a number of people in the media who try to communicate licentiousness is the only way to live. And that immorality is a positive good. If you're not living an immoral life when it comes to the sexual realm, you're going to be frustrated and crazy. So we'll help you be normal. That's one of the cultural messages.
It is.
It takes somebody as powerful as a parent to counteract that message.
It does, and knowing that even in these very often unplanned, impromptu moments that come up when you're driving your child to a basketball game or whatever, picking them up from somebody's house, that those are very often the times when the questions are going to come.
Right.
And you need to be prepared. You need to be ready to answer, and know that when that question is asked, you do and will have a positive influence on your child. So we just encourage that, and hope that we're going to be able to enable and empower more and more parents to do just that.
Yeah. What are some of the other issues then that you help parents deal with their children?
Well, in addition to chastity, a huge thing is communication, and not just taking the opportunity to communicate, but it sounds so simple and so basic, but it actually can be a big deal in families that, okay, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to tell it to you in a way that I want you to listen. How are you coming across to your child if it's a harsh tone? Yeah, you're talking to them, but is it really kind of more in an authoritarian way? So we talk about the different styles of communication and helping parents understand that really how they say things can make a big difference in how it's received and whether it's heard.
What are some of the positive ways that parents can communicate with a teenager? How can they approach a teenager? Because sometimes a teenager can also have a certain attitude problem.
That's true.
Where they think that they already are far more intelligent than their parents, and they because parents aren't cool, and they don't know what cool is anymore. Their parents' cool is way out of date. So and as a matter of fact, this is the theme of a lot of commercials. Parents are adults. Children are cool and on the inside. How do you communicate to these kids?
Well, one of the things is many different ways. One of the things that parents can do that really has proven to be very effective in strengthening family life is something as simple as having dinner regularly together. Studies have shown that families who eat together on a regular basis, I think it's at least like 3 or 4 times a week, can be healthier families in terms of their relationships. That's one thing. When your child is sitting in the living room watching a television show, sit down beside them and ask questions, especially if it's a show that you're thinking, you know, I'm not wild about that content. Pose some questions, and, you know, in a way that they would have to answer them. You know, what do you think about how that man and woman are interacting with each other? You know, it looks a little bit disrespectful to me. What do you think? How does that come across to you? So engage them in conversation. Also do this
and also make sure you listen to them.
And make sure you listen. Yeah, learn to be a good listener. One of the things that we talk about, kind of gets back to that communication, is search talk. Asking some questions that will probe a little bit, but also being ready to let your child talk if they come home from school, and not being so quick to jump in with a solution immediately. Hear them out, let them talk, let their conversation, what they have to say, run its course, so that you're not just jumping in there with well, this is what I do, or this is how to solve that, so that they really feel like they've been heard and they've had a chance to just, you know, spill their guts when they need to.
Yeah, sometimes parents short-circuit the communication by solving the problem before the kid really wants it solved.
Yeah.
You know, the kid might not really want to solve it right away, but just talk about what's going on and use it as a bridge, because, you know, a lot of times another issue with teenagers is, how's your day? Fine.
Yes.
What'd you do in school? Yeah. Nothing.
That's it exactly.
You know, and how you can engage them. Well, I lived that conversation, you know, growing up. But you know, how you can engage them so that they know that you really mean that you're interested. That's an important thing.
And, you know, wrapped up all around this too is another very important part of this, and that's the sense of connectedness that your son or daughter feels with you. Very, very important. You know, it's a wonderful thing when we have what our faith teaches us, which is our parents are it. Parents are the primary educators of their child, first and primary. And then you have science and research that's coming along and saying, you know, we've been finding out some interesting things. Parents are where it's at. Parents do make a difference. One of the biggest studies that was done, and it's been probably about a good 12 years or so ago now, researchers wanted to look at risk-taking behavior in adolescents, and what was the determining factor as to whether an adolescent would or would not engage in risk-taking behavior.
Such as using drugs?
Using drugs, using alcohol, engaging in premarital sex, skipping school, all these different kinds of things.
And stealing.
Things
like that.
Yes. Yeah. And what they found out, and this was a huge study, and it was such a big study that they're still actually pulling results from it and still using it. But what they found from this study was that it was the sense of parent-child connectedness that determined that was actually acting as a preventive measure for kids not engaging in risk-taking behavior.
So the more they're connected with their parents and the parents connected with the kids, the fewer risks the kids will take.
The fewer incidences of risk-taking behavior the kids would engage in. And the researchers defined connectedness as the sense of warmth and caring as perceived by the child. So that's an important qualifier too. So parents need to be encouraged that even when it seems like your child is responding with those monosyllabic utterances, yeah, no, keep talking and stay connected. You know, we have one of our folks that's been involved with Family Liner for many years tells the story about how she used to go in and with one of her children who would often get angry at some of the decisions her parents had made. But she would always go in and tuck her in at night and say goodnight. And, you know, this young woman who is now a mom of her own appreciated that and never forgot that. And we have other stories from other parents too, that you know, we want to be an encouragement to them just to hang in there, keep talking, try and keep that connection there, and let them know you care, even when it seems like you're getting a cold response.
Now, a very uncomfortable situation that shows up very frequently is that in which there's been divorce or you have a single parent. Do you deal with them as well?
Well, we invite folks to come to our programs. Ideally, the scenario, whether the parents are a single parent or two-parent family, the ideal scenario you want is a mom and a dad there with that child, because it really does make a difference for that child to know, even if there's been, a separation or a divorce, that my parents are caring enough to come together and to spend some time with me. So yeah, we have
with me and about me.
With me and about me, to focus on my needs where I am right now in my life. So this is encouragement we also try and give the parents for that child's sake. Come together. And there are a lot, I'm glad you brought this up, Father, because there are a lot of single parents out there, and they're doing what would amount to a heroic job, for sure. So our programs, we don't exclude anybody from our programs. We say single parent, two-parent, parent with step-parent, and in some cases it's grandparents or other adults
That's right.
that are raising a child. And we would say, come on, because whoever is the primary caregiver or caregivers in that child's life, you are the one that child is looking to for conversation about some of these topics, for the love and the warmth and the caring. So, take some time. This could be some of the most valuable time doing something like this that you ever spend with that child, because it will impact some of the decisions that child makes later. Their understanding of so many of these big topics that need to be talked about.
Yeah, questions of who the child is.
Yeah.
One of the big tasks of adolescence is focusing on an identity, and you can see them trying on identities like new styles of clothes as they come along.
Absolutely.
And they will hang out with the band, they'll try to be an athlete, they'll be a joker, all sorts of things. And for the parent to help them to settle on an identity that hopefully makes sense is a very important role.
It is. It absolutely is. And again, that child is looking to you, even when it seems like they're not in a lot of cases. And there's other folks that, that can help along the way. They're, coaches and people in that child's life. But again, at the end of the day, who knows that child best? It's the parent. It's the parent, and even Family Honor. We're just there to facilitate, to jumpstart, to provide that opportunity, but it's all about the family. It's all about the family at the end of the day.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, we have to take a break. We're going to come back. We want to get some of your questions and your comments, as well as those of our studio audience, so please stay with us. Thank you, and welcome back. We have a nice group of folks. Most of them come from Kentucky, and folks from other parts of the country are here too. And if you can come and join us with a group from your parish or other prayer group or something, you're more than welcome to come down as a group, or if you want to come down as a family or as individuals, you're very welcome. And we'd like you to contact our pilgrimage department by calling them at 205-271-2966. That's 205-271-2966. Or you can go to our website, www.ewtn.com, and they'll give you all sorts of information about where you can stay, scheduling of the masses, scheduling of tours of the network, the programs, and it really is a lot more fun when y'all are here. So come on down and join us. Also, I'd like to give you some information about Family Honor. You can go to their website, which is www.familyhonor, that's one word, familyhonor.org. Or you can call them at 803-929-0858. It's 803-929-0858. Also, their address is 2927 Divine Street, Suite 130. So 2927 Divine Street, Suite 130, Columbia, South Carolina, 29205. And you can contact them to find out if they can come you do seminars at the parishes and other sites, and you can bring them in to do this for your parish group. Get a whole bunch of people together and help a lot of families out. You ready for some questions?
Oh, I am. I'd love some questions.
Great. Let's start off with Ann. She's on the line. Hello, Ann.
Hi.
Hi. Where are you from?
Wyoming.
Great. And what is your question?
Does the program address falling in love for the first time? Is there early help for girls, especially because they won't be expecting it to suddenly end over some misunderstanding?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure I heard the question.
I'm sorry, I got a cold.
Oh, okay.
I was saying, is there anything in the program that addresses falling in love for the first time, especially for girls?
Oh, okay. So, when you fall in love the first time and you might have your first heartbreak, what they oftentimes call puppy love and all that. Do you address some of that?
We talk about it a little bit, I guess maybe in a more indirect way. We talk about the qualities of true love, and we talk about the difference between love and lust and infatuation. And we talk about, again, kind of circling back to that whole topic of friendship and same-sex friendship and opposite-sex friendship, and what makes the healthy qualities for a good friendship. So we try and help parents see that one of the things that's very important is that early dating is not good. So we strongly encourage parents to encourage their young people and to set specific guidelines to, not start dating at 13, 12, 14.
Right.
This is not good, by and large.
No.
This is not good. So so establish some parameters in your family and stick to them.
There are a lot of things that teenagers can do as a group that's appropriate for 13, 14 years old,
Absolutely.
15 even.
Yeah.
But, dating should go on a little bit later.
Exactly. And when we have our high school age program, that's when you start to get into a little bit more about appropriate dating behavior, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And when we do talk about things like we do have a segment in our Real Love in Real Life program for parents with 8th graders, and it references later dating, but it talks about appropriate steps in dating. And so, which is also kind of countercultural to what most of them are hearing and seeing all around them, actually.
Sure. We have a question from our studio audience. Ma'am, where are you from?
I'm from Louisville, Kentucky.
That's a pretty town. I like Louisville. And what is your question?
Well, it's more of a comment than a question.
Sure.
As I said, my parents never discussed the word sex. It was never mentioned. Well, I was lucky that I had a sister 10 years older than I was. And she knew what she had been through, so she explained menstruation to me about actually 2 months before it happened. But she told me that you did not menstruate when you were pregnant, but she didn't tell me how you got pregnant. So if I went a week or two over, I was in agony. Well, I made sure that my daughter was not going to go through this. When she was in the 3rd grade, she asked me where babies came from. And I had an honest discussion with her, and I told her if she ever had any questions to come to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So you part of your point is that you learned from your parents' mistakes not to make the same errors.
That's right.
Do you want to comment?
Well, I think, again, that's a story that we hear a lot, that there's been a lack of communication in the past, and it's impacted a lot of folks that are parents and even grandparents out there now, yeah, and they want better for their kids and grandkids, yeah, so this is not an uncommon story.
This is something that I've been talking about for a long time. I'm not in favor of sex ed in the schools, because in a classroom you're going to have kids at a variety of stages of development.
Absolutely.
They don't develop at the same rate, and they have different kinds of questions depending on how they're developing. But I am in favor of a sex ed program for parents so that they learn how to communicate. And that's exactly what you're doing.
That's exactly what we're talking about. We want to make very clear that at the end of the day, again, it's all about the parents driving this, the parents being in control, the parents knowing what's best for their child. And so when we go into a parish and offer our programs, that's what it is. We offer the program, and the parents sign up voluntarily because they can decide if they want and if they think their child is ready for this at this particular age. And in some cases, like with the first program that we do for parents with their 6th grade son or daughter, sometimes you have a parent that thinks, well, I'm not sure if my 6th grade son is ready for this right now, but he might be in 3 months, and of course Family Honor isn't going to be here. So the other option they can do is that they just come to the program themselves. They get the materials, they hear about this neat new language and new ways of broaching the subject, and 3 months or 6 months down the road, when Family Honor isn't around, but they will have gotten some good information. So again, yeah, parents are where it's at. That's where it begins and ends.
Exactly. We have Walter on the line. Hello, Walter.
Good evening, Father.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Pennsylvania, by New Jersey.
They're still keeping Pennsylvania next to New Jersey, are they?
Right.
That's good.
First of all, I want to thank that woman for what she's doing. Not only is she bringing back the honor to the family, but she's bringing back morals to the family that has been lost.
Oh, thank you.
And my question is, I think part of the problem with the families are that you have two parents working. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Walter. I appreciate that comment. So this is a problem. Sometimes both parents are working, and children are latchkey children, that they come home to an empty house, unlike I, who had mom at home. You know, what would be your comment on that?
Well, that's absolutely true. I mean, we do see that more and more, and I would encourage parents to network, to band together. One of the good things about Family Honor programs is that parents come together and the kids are coming together. So you're there with other like-minded parents, and you can look around and eyeball who's there, and they're hearing the same message that your family is. And one of the things that parents can do is help each other in this regard. Perhaps, you know, you and your husband are working. Is there somebody else that's in your circle of friends or that has been to this program that sees this same philosophy the way that you do, that you know, want to try and protect their kids? Help each other, parents.
Right. Now, one other question that I have: do children feel uncomfortable having their parents in the same room as they're discussing very sensitive issues?
Well, this is fun. I'm smiling when I'm hearing this because it is so funny, the stages of the audience reaction that goes through. As Director of Family Honor, I try and get out periodically and sit in on the programs, and I enjoy it. It's just wonderful to see the reaction and to see our wonderful presenters and the good job that they do in bringing this message. But it is so funny because you'll see for the program that we do with parents with their 8th grade son or daughter, typically how it starts out is this. Everybody's a little bit nervous. We're doing the icebreaker, and one of the questions that we'll ask, that our presenters will ask, is, okay, everybody who is excited and happy to be at this program, get on this side of the room. And everybody who's not so happy about being here tonight, get on this side of the room. Well, most of the parents are on the happy side of the room. Most of the kids are all up against the wall with arms folded like this, like, okay, prove it to me. But midway through that first session of that first night, you can see the body language, the kids relaxing, the parents relaxing, and the kids, it's all like you can see the thought bubble almost above their head. You know, I think this is going to be okay. This could maybe even help me. So once the kids actually get into it, even like the first 30 minutes, they see that this is something good, and this is something that is going to help answer some of the questions that they have.
Sure.
So it's all good.
Good. We have another question from our studio. And sir, where are you from?
From Louisville, Kentucky, Father.
Good to have you here. And what's your question?
What kind of advice do you have for parents of teenagers in regards to social media and keeping track of what your teens are doing?
That is a great question, a very timely question, and that is a question we are getting more and more in our programs, I would say in the last couple of years, to the degree that we're in the process of updating our curricula and doing more with this. One of the things I would actually recommend is for parents who are concerned about what their kids might be seeing or how they're using social media, and how will I as a parent know that they're doing inappropriate things if they are, and how can I protect them? How can I protect their innocence? There are some good resources out there for parents that will help guide you and get you to be a little bit more savvy about social media and how you can protect the innocence of your children and how you can be involved and how you can monitor and put some controls on. I would actually strongly recommend that parents go to our website, familyhonor.org. We have some parent tips on there and some teen tips, and two of them specifically deal with use of social media, so that teens can go there and see appropriate things and ways to navigate social media. But parents, if you go to our website, you will also see tips and guidelines for yourself, getting a little bit more savvy about social media. But that was a great question, and that is one that we've been asked more and more. And parents do need to educate themselves on this, because it can be an uninvited stranger in your home.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons that some families don't allow their children to have a computer in their own rooms, but they have it in a public room in the house, so that there's, it's part of the social environment to get involved with the social media.
Absolutely.
And that parents can monitor it a lot more easily.
Yes, yeah, that's it. You said it exactly right. Keep the computer in a public area.
Right. We have another caller, John. Hello, John.
Hello, Father Mitch.
Hi, where are you from?
Ohio.
And what's your question?
Well, my question is, I think there's a combination of psychology synthesized with spirituality, which I think is a very strong suit for somebody to play. And my question is, and this happened in my own life a little bit, and I've seen it, parents want to be buddy pals totally with their kids, and they don't know they have God-given authority to push a little and be an authority in love for the children. I think it's a growing problem, and I wonder if you address that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Would you like to take that?
Yeah, I think he makes a good point. I think, again, parents do need to be parents. And one of the things that we've seen over the years, too, is a lot of times you get the sense from parents, they feel so beaten down. They feel like, the culture is kind of out there with that theme of parents are dolts. Parents don't get it. This is a new day and age. What was past is past, what have you. But again,
which is simply a way. This is a trick to get children to not listen, to have children get permission to not listen to their parents and listen to the social media instead.
Absolutely. And we just want to encourage parents, and I can only say it over and over, be a parent, find a network of support with other parents, know absolutely that you can make a difference. Don't ever, give up in despair that because this is such an aggressive culture that's just out there with all kinds of stuff, that you can't make a difference or that you're not making a difference. But I will say too, it is important to model good behavior for your young person in every possible way. And that's a big part of this, is they've got to see that you're walking the walk in addition to talking the talk.
Right.
And also, the caller mentioned spirituality, and I think that's one thing that's key too with Family Honor programs, is that we have a Catholic approach. We're a Catholic organization, and so part of this whole scenario involves the spiritual, having a spiritual life, making that a part of your family, knowing that that's where you're going to draw your strength to.
Yeah, that's a very important element as well. We have another caller, Marianne. Hello, Marianne.
Hi, Father Mitch. How are you?
Fine. Where are you from?
I'm from New York.
And great. What's your question?
My question is for Brenda. I am the aunt to 3 nephews and 2 nieces. Both come from lovely families. They're lovely kids, but I'm a little concerned about my eldest nephew. He's getting that age. He's around 12. And my question to Brenda is, how do I broach my concerns about my eldest nephew to my brother and his wife without seeming condescending or without being told, mind my own business?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think that's a hard one. That really depends so much on the relationship, the existing relationship that you have with your family, and how far you feel you can go. I will say this: I think it might be helpful to provide some articles to them, or bone up a little bit more on just information, some of what we're talking about here tonight, and to do this when you do go to them. Do it in an encouraging way, out of genuine concern, and certainly acknowledging that you respect their role as parents and that you are not trying to be intrusive in that role. But really at the end of the day, so much of that depends on that relationship and how it exists and what you feel comfortable doing.
You see, another thing that may be helpful is to point out that you notice concrete behaviors. Mm-hmm. Not just saying, I think that, Joey is turning into a punk, that's
to put it bluntly.
Yeah, right. No, you want to say, I saw Joey sneaking behind the garage and smoking cigarettes, as an 8th grader. Mm-hmm. Did you give him permission for this? Or something very concrete, very specific.
Absolutely.
And then just say, well, I just thought I'd let you know.
Yeah.
Or Joey has been very disrespectful to me. Mm-hmm. He's been sassing me, and he's never done that before, and I feel concerned. Mm-hmm. These kind of concrete questions can come up, so that you give a behavior that you notice that the parents would know, so you're not telling them something they already know.
Right, and focusing on the behavior, not running down the kid or what have you. Yes.
Right. Or the parents, you're just letting them know there's this concrete behavior. Mm-hmm. He sassed me, a couple times, and and I don't know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. That's another good line. I don't know how to deal with it because I'm only the aunt or the uncle or whatever. So do you have any suggestions?
Absolutely.
So you lay it out for them to do. Mm-hmm. The parents will become more allies than enemies if you do that. And
that's absolutely a good way of looking at it. And it's being an ally with other adults that are concerned that really can make the difference. And I think, that's historically a lot of times what parents have done in the past, looking out for your kid. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, where I grew up, all the moms were in cahoots.
Exactly.
They got together to play cards every month. Mm-hmm. And we know that there was more than once that we kids were the topic of conversation.
That's
right.
So
and they just all kept an eye on us, and none of them cared if you disciplined the other ones for monkeying around in their backyards.
Exactly.
Whoever did something wrong, Mrs. Cerkez could take care of it.
Absolutely, and that's an easy rule of thumb to remember. More parents need to be in cahoots with each other.
Yep. Yep.
There you go.
Yep. We have another question from our studio audience. Sir, where are you from?
I'm from St. Christopher Parish in Radcliffe, Kentucky.
Good to have you here. And what's your question?
Well, it seems like a valid thing to maybe help a young person burn off a lot of their energy in good activities, but do you see maybe a danger in maybe cluttering their lives up too much with too many activities, even if they're very good things?
Sure, and again, that's another good question. I think a lot of times what is being lost, and what has been lost in the last few years in particular is family time. Yeah. Just as husband and wives need time for each other to focus on that primary relationship, family needs family time. What we have seen with a lot of our folks that are involved with Family Honor is a number of them set aside Sundays as their day for family. And this has gotten increasingly difficult.
What about the soccer league on Sunday?
Exactly. What about it? What about it?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, you're just going to have to say no, that you carve out that time. And that has become very difficult. It really, really has. Because what we're finding is more and more, coaches are wanting to hold practices on Sundays, and, there's more activities and more things to do, and more social
kids can't even get to church.
Yeah.
That happens. Parents say, well, I couldn't bring them to church because they had practice.
Yeah, not a good thing.
No.
Not a good thing.
No.
Yeah, so I would just strongly encourage parents to carve out Sunday. Sunday is the logical day. It's a perfect day. Go to Mass together as a family and make the day a family day, doing what your family likes to do. And it's going to be different for each family. For some family, it might be, hitting the hiking or biking trail. For other families, it might be board games. That's what they love to do. But figure out as a family some things you can do together. Carve out that precious time on Sundays and make it sacred, really, in every sense of the word.
And there's some studies that show that one of the most unifying activities a family can do is to go out camping together. Mm-hmm. That this is a very good activity, not because it's always so much fun, but you have so many misadventures that for years you've got great stories to tell.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's part of being a family, having
Exactly.
Having those common points of reference that even when things weren't going perfectly, it bonded you together. You know what each other's talking about. Sometimes it's a word or a phrase that you just look at each other and you say, remember that? And you do. It was a family experience. It was a shared experience.
Right. We have another caller. Hello, Mary.
Hello?
Hi, where are you from?
Florida.
And what's your question?
Well, it's more of a comment. I think what she's doing is great, but we have two daughters, and what we did at our church is we had a ceremony where the girls would go and promise to the Lord that they would stay abstinent, practice abstinence until their marriage. And our oldest daughter didn't want to do it, and our youngest daughter did. And they're both married now, and the youngest daughter is in a great marriage. She's happy. They just had their first baby. And our oldest daughter is in a horrible marriage with one child and on the brink of a divorce. So it's what she's saying is proof positive. If you can get the girls to understand, to stay away from dating when they don't need to.
Right. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mary, for that comment.
Yeah, and that's a good point, too, because one of the things that we do in our Family Honor programs, that's part of the program, is give the young people an opportunity to, with their parents as a witness, and it doesn't have to be at the program, but at some point, if they feel comfortable, at home at the appropriate time, is making a pledge to lead a chaste life. Mm-hmm. And that's significant, just proactively doing that, deciding to do that and sign your little pledge card. That can be a big step in keeping that frame of mind, that this is a decision that I made as a commitment to God and with my parents as witnesses.
But the other part of the conversation that you want them to have mm-hmm. is that there's a reason mm-hmm. that bad dating patterns mm-hmm. help form you towards mm-hmm. a poor relationship with a husband. Mm-hmm. that, you know, bad dating patterns don't prepare you for marriage.
They don't.
And good ones do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, you know, the conversations that you're getting across really make.
Exactly. And, you know, it's funny. I know one of our folks has been involved with Family Honor for a while. Him and his wife also did some marriage prep at their parish. And I remember him saying years ago, and it struck me as odd just for a minute, and I thought, well, no, that's perfectly logical. He said, you know, or actually it wasn't marriage prep, it was some religious education. And he said, you know, I can see some of what Family Honor is doing and some of what we do with these young people. We've taken some of the principles of Family Honor and talked to them about. He said, and you could almost look at it as early marriage preparation.
Sure.
And, you know, I thought, now that's an interesting way to look at it for young kids, but it's so true.
Right.
Because you don't want people arriving at marriage prep classes in their mid-20s clueless as to what chastity means or any of these related concepts.
Exactly.
This kind of language, these terms, the sooner they start, the better, so that it's just natural.
All right. Well, we've flat run out of time. I want to thank you very much for being with us, and I want to give you a blessing. May Almighty God bless you and keep you, and cause His face to shine upon you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And I want to remind you that this network is brought to you by you. We can't do this without your support. And right now, we're really behind quite a bit. So please, keep us in between your gas bill, your electric bill, and your cable bill. And we'll be able to pay some of the bills that we're falling behind on. Thank you, and God bless you.